The Lord be with you.
And with your spirit.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke.
Glory to the Lord.
Mary set out and traveled to the hill country in haste to a town of Judah, where she entered the house of Zechariah and greeted Elizabeth. When Elizabeth heard Mary's greeting, the infant leaped in her womb, and Elizabeth, filled with the Holy Spirit, cried out in a loud voice and said, "Blessed are you among women, and blessed is the fruit of your womb. And how does this happen to me, that the mother of my Lord should come to me? For at the moment the sound of your greeting reached my ears, the infant in my womb leaped for joy. Blessed are you who believed that what was spoken to you by the Lord would be fulfilled." The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
Very often in December, I hear complaints from people saying, "How come we don't do Christmas songs as we're preparing for Christmas? They get me in the Christmas spirit." And I try to explain, because we have a season called Advent. It's a season of preparation, a beautiful season that gives us all the promises that are fulfilled in the birth of Jesus, and we need to celebrate that so that we can celebrate Christmas. But they do it everywhere else in this world. Honestly, if we gave in, we'd be singing Christmas songs the day after Thanksgiving. I mean, not the day after Halloween, actually, all right? But today I'm going to give in a little bit. We got a couple of days till Christmas. Let's look at some Christmas songs. If you want, sing along, but I want you to know what's going to happen is I'm going to sing a little bit and stop. And so if you keep going, it's going to be fun. All right, so we'll try that. O holy night, the stars are brightly shining. It is the night of our dear Savior's birth. Long lay the world in sin and error pining, till he appeared and the soul felt its worth. A thrill of hope, the weary world rejoices, for yonder breaks a new and glorious morn. I knew you were going to do it. But actually, that's the appropriate response, to fall on our knees in what God has given us. But sometimes we need to really look at the reality that God came into, all right? I mean, in sin and error pining, do we pine for God? Do we really, in our hearts, really, really long for God? And it's not, sometimes I think about the sin piece. And I say, it's not so much that we are such sinners, but sometimes we're looking for love in all the wrong places. And maybe what we need to do is refocus ourselves. He was born to show each one of us his love. That's the reality, okay? Wait a second. I'm trying to think of the next line about oh my goodness, I have it written down. I have it words. Okay, and the soul felt its worth. And the soul felt its worth. Do we stop as individuals and say, holy smoke, Jesus came into the world and all its problems because of me? Do we think that way? Sometimes we're too busy thinking, Lord, I'm not worthy. Which, by the way, that prayer that we say before communion is not so much about our unworthiness, but about the power of God. I'm unworthy, but only say the word, and my soul will be healed. The word is Jesus. The word made flesh and dwelling among us. For you and for me. Okay? What about this weary world? Wow. Yeah, that's reality. I mean, if you think about it, I would say we are weary of war, racism, political corruption, challenges in our political system, all sorts of things like that. But there's also, I mean, the world itself, the earth, is weary. Think about this. There are people in our world, people on Long Island, who spend more money on lawn care than they do on caring for our brothers and sisters. And because of the way it's done with whatever kind of nutrients are being, it's ruining our aquifer. And because of that, then people are afraid to drink water, so they drink bottled water, and there's plastic being thrown out. And do you know, in the Pacific Ocean, in the northern Pacific, there is a mass of plastic and garbage that's floating. It is twice the size of Texas. Wow. That's a weary world. But then we think about also just climate change and the effects that it's had on storms. That, these once in a century storm that we've had about 5 of them in the last 10 years, I mean, because of things that are going on in our world. But you know what? Thrill of hope. I asked an earth science teacher, is it possible for the world, the earth, to actually be weary? She said, absolutely. But she also said, but it can heal itself just by its natural taking care of things. And what happens is, if we back off on some of the things that we're doing, the world can heal itself. Actually during COVID, during the lockdown, things got better in terms of the environment because we weren't all driving all over the place and things like that. But think about things like we have an organic community garden in the back. First of all, it's organic. That's letting the world take care of itself. But also every time a plant is planted, it produces oxygen and it helps the environment. So if we all cooperate with the one who came into the world to love us, we can all be part of that hope that is to come. Wow. Let's look at another song. O little town of Bethlehem, how still we see thee lie. I can tell you're all so hungry for Christmas. That's great. But think about it. The little town of Bethlehem. Little town. Do you know that Bethlehem has today about 29,000 people living there? That's about 10,000 more than in Ronkonkoma. Now, actually, Ronkonkoma on Long Island is pretty big. I mean, we have 2 very big school districts that are served in Ronkonkoma. But in the picture of the world, how big is it? Well, let's go back to that hope, all right? A thrill of hope. In this little town of Bethlehem, that means nothing. In the first reading, it said, "Oh, you Bethlehem Ephratah, you're the smallest, but from you shall come." But what about the hope that's present every time? Did you hear in the gospel? Who was in the gospel? Mary and Elizabeth. 2 pregnant women. Hope. Every time we see someone who's about to have a child or is waiting to have a child, that's hope there. My father used to say, the most beautiful thing in the world is a woman who's pregnant. He had to say that. My mother was pregnant all the time. But the thing is, that's hope. And if we look at that as hope, and if we hear children in our church crying and see that as hope, God saying to us, I want humanity to continue, then we can look at one another as hope. Not the same kind of hope as the Messiah brings, but hope for the future of the church. I got to tell you, it happened a little bit over a year ago. One of our kids, who's now an adult, was in the National Guard, and he was shipped out to Kuwait. Okay, no big deal. But then that attack happened in Israel and started the war. And Kuwait's kind of close to Israel. I was kind of concerned, and I saw his dad after Mass one day and said, "Is he all right?" "Yes, he's okay, don't worry." But as we're talking, his younger brother came by, and I just was so, I was almost, I didn't want to talk about it in front of him. I said, "I'm so sorry that you have to grow up in a world like this." You know what his dad did? He put his arm around his son and he said, "Yeah, but maybe he'll be one of the people who helps change it for the better." That's hope. And that's the way we should look at each other and look at ourselves in the mirror. Hope. It can, if it can come from Bethlehem, it can come from Ronkonkoma. Any one of us can be a spark in our world that can change our world for the better if we follow His way. If we recognize His love, the light that's given to us from His birth, from His life, death, and resurrection, then we can be hope as well. Silent night, holy night, all is calm, all is bright, round yon virgin Holy infant, so tender and mild, sleep in heavenly peace. Sleep in heavenly peace. I want to get the dates right on this. That song, that poem actually, on Christmas Eve in 1818, was given from Father Joseph Moore, brought it to his schoolmaster and organist, Franz Xavier Gruber, who set it to guitar music because the organ in the church had been damaged by a flood. That song has been translated into over 100 languages. We can't imagine Christmas without it. And yet it came from a broken time. Broken world where the organ they couldn't do Christmas songs they would normally do, so this replaced it. God took brokenness and gave us this gift over 200 years later. Wow. It's amazing what God does for all of us through his brokenness. He came into our world, our broken world, to allow himself to be broken and rejected and killed for you and me, so he could rise and give us new life. That's hope. But again, sometimes when it comes to Christmas music, people say, I want to hear it because it gets me in the Christmas spirit. I'm not even sure what the Christmas spirit is anymore with all the sales and this and that and the other thing. Maybe what we need to do is let the spirit of him who we celebrate on Christmas, whose birth we celebrate on Christmas, get into us, so that we can learn to live in that love on the other 364 days of the year. There's another song that I don't know if it's really a Christmas song. I learned it when I was a kid in grammar school. I think it was for a Christmas concert, but I'm not 100% sure. But I think maybe this year it needs to be part of our Christmas celebration and part of our prayers for the coming year. Please turn to number 701. This one I want you to sing with me. "701. Dona nobis pacem pacem, dona nobis 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 pacem. Give us peace. On September 11th, 2002, in the parish I was at the time, we had a prayer service. The church was filled, standing room only. The youth choir was part of it, and they sang this song, and it goes on and it goes into a round, and it's sung over each of the three parts are sung over each other. As we were preparing for it, I told the kids, I said, do you know the best response music ministers can ever have when they sing a song in the church is silence, not applause. Because silence means you've moved people to prayer. So we sang that song and went into the round, sang it through once, and then sang the round twice, and it just rang there and ended singing Pacem, peace. And there was silence. And one of the kids leaned over and said, Father Mike, they got it. Yes, they did, for that moment. But you know what? We need to get it and hang on to it. We need to get it and share it. We need to be people of peace. Sleep in heavenly peace, we sing that. And yet look at what we do to one another in our world. Let's make this our prayer for the coming year. Give us peace, but make us ministers of peace.